Admiral Sarah stood before the massive viewing screen in Earth's defense headquarters. Her face was pale as she watched the latest reports come in. Another human colony had fallen. The planet 442b, home to 3 million humans, was now under alien control. The enemy called themselves the hegemony of. They were not just one alien race, but 12 different species working together. For the past 5 years, they had been moving through human space like a deadly storm. Every planet they touched became theirs. Every human colony that tried to fight back was crushed. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Torres, running up to her with a data pad. "We just received word from the system. The enemy fleet destroyed all our ships there. No survivors." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. The system had been humanity's first step into the stars. Now it was gone. She opened her eyes and looked at the star map on the screen. Red dots showed where the enemy controlled space. Blue dots showed human territory. There was much more red than blue now. "How many ships do they have heading for Earth?" she asked. "Our scouts report over 3,000 enemy vessels," Torres replied. "They're gathering near the edge of our solar system. Intelligence says this is their grand armada, every major ship they have." 3,000 ships. Sarah felt her heart sink. Earth's entire defense fleet had maybe 200 ships. Even with all their technology, humans could not fight that many enemies at once. The door to the command center opened. General Harrison walked in. His uniform was wrinkled and his eyes were red from lack of sleep. He had been working day and night to find a solution to their problem. "Sarah," he said quietly, "we need to talk in private." They walked to a small office nearby. General Harrison locked the door behind them and sat down heavily in a chair. "The Earth Council met last night," he said. "We talked about all our options. Fighting with our normal fleet won't work. Running away is impossible. They move faster than we do." "So what do we do?" Sarah asked. Harrison was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick file marked with red letters, "Top Secret Project Umbra." "We use this," he said, placing the file on the desk. Sarah had heard whispers about Project Umbra. It was something the Earth government had been working on in secret. Even she, one of the highest-ranking military officers on Earth, did not know the details. She opened the file and began to read. Her eyes grew wider with each page. The documents talked about a ship unlike anything humans had ever built. It was not just big, it was enormous, 50 kilometers long. The file said it could hold 100,000 crew members. "This is real?" she asked. "We've been building it for 30 years, Harrison said. "Hidden in the belt where no one would look. It's been ready for 6 months, but we hoped we would never need to use it." Sarah kept reading. The ship was called the UES Leviathan. It was not just a battleship. It was something much more dangerous. The file described weapons she had never heard of before, something called a void lance, gravity well generators, a hull that could absorb light. "How is this possible?" she asked. "We don't have technology like this." "We do now," Harrison said. "Remember the probe that found that strange object near Pluto 15 years ago, the one that disappeared from all the reports?" Sarah nodded. She remembered the news stories. A deep space probe had found something unusual, but then all information about it stopped appearing in the media. "It wasn't an asteroid," Harrison continued. "It was a piece of technology, alien technology, but not from any species we had met before. Our scientists have been studying it ever since. They learned how to copy some of its abilities." The file showed pictures of the Leviathan under construction. It looked like nothing Sarah had ever seen. Instead of the bright metal of human ships, it was dark, almost black. The ship seemed to bend light around it in the photos. "The power source," she read from the file. "It says here you're using a captured black hole." "A small one," Harrison said. "Very small and very carefully controlled. It gives the ship almost unlimited power." Sarah put the file down. Her hands were shaking slightly. "General, what you're describing sounds like something from a science fiction movie. Are you telling me this ship actually works?" "It works," Harrison said. "But we only have one, and once we use it, everyone in the galaxy will know what we can do. There's no going back." "What choice do we have?" Sarah asked. "If we don't fight, Earth dies. If we fight with normal ships, Earth dies anyway." Harrison nodded. "The Council decided last night. We're activating Project Umbra. The Leviathan will launch in 72 hours. "Who's going to command it?" "Captain, he's been training for this mission for 10 years. He knows that ship better than anyone. Sarah looked at the file again. The technical details were incredible. The ship could create areas of space where normal physics didn't work. It could hide itself completely from enemy sensors. It could destroy other ships in ways that seemed impossible. The enemy has 3,000 ships, she said. This is just one ship, no matter how advanced. Sarah, Harrison said seriously, look at page 47. She flipped to that page. It showed test results from the ship's weapons. The Void Lance had completely destroyed a mountain on a test planet, not just blown it up, made it disappear entirely. The gravity generators had crushed a large asteroid into a ball the size of a marble. When the enemy sees what this ship can do, Harrison said, they won't think about numbers anymore, they'll think about survival. Sarah closed the file. Outside the window, she could see the lights of Earth's cities. Millions of people lived down there. They were all counting on the military to protect them. Most of them had no idea how bad things really were. When does Captain get his orders? She asked. Tonight, Harrison said. The Leviathan begins its journey tomorrow. By the time the enemy reaches Earth, our ship will be waiting for them. Sarah stood up. The weight of what they were about to do pressed down on her. Humanity was about to reveal a secret weapon that would change everything. There would be no hiding anymore. Every alien race in the galaxy would know that humans were much more dangerous than they appeared. I hope we're making the right choice, she said. We're making the only choice we have, Harrison replied. Captain floated through the dark corridor of the construction station. Outside the thick windows, he could see it, the UES Leviathan. After 10 years of training for this moment, he was finally going to command the most powerful ship humans had ever built. The Leviathan looked like a giant black triangle floating in space. It was so large that his eyes could not take it all in at once. 50 kilometers from front to back, 20 kilometers wide at its base. The hull was not like normal ship metal. It seemed to eat light instead of reflecting it. Impressive, isn't she? Said Doctor, floating up beside him. She had been the chief scientist on Project Umbra since the beginning. Her gray hair was tied back in a simple knot, and her eyes were bright with excitement. It's bigger than some asteroids I've seen, said. Are you sure it will actually fly? Laughed, Captain, this ship doesn't just fly, it bends space around it. The laws of physics work differently when you're near the Leviathan. They moved through the station toward the docking port, carried a small bag with his personal items. Everything else he needed was already on the ship. The crew of 100,000 had been boarding for the past week. Tell me about the power source again, said. I've read the reports, but I want to hear it from you. We call it a quantum black hole, explained. It's about the size of a marble, but it weighs as much as a mountain. We keep it contained in a magnetic field deep in the ship's core. The energy it produces is almost unlimited. Tried to imagine something so small being so heavy. The science behind the Leviathan was beyond what most people could understand. Even he, with years of training, only knew the basics. They reached the docking port. Through the window could see the airlock that led to his new ship, his new home, his new weapon. The crew is ready, he asked. They've been training together for 5 years, said. They know every system on that ship, every button, every screen, every emergency procedure. These are the best people humanity has. Nodded, he had met many of them during training. Scientists, engineers, weapons specialists, pilots. All of them had volunteered for a mission they might not return from. The airlock opened with a soft hiss, pushed himself through, and found himself in the Leviathan's docking bay. The space was huge, big enough to hold several normal-sized ships, but even this enormous room was just a tiny part of the Leviathan. Commander Lisa Park was waiting for him. She was his second in command, a woman who had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. Captain, she said, saluting, the ship is ready for your command. Status report, said as they began moving toward the bridge. All systems are online, Lisa replied. The crew is at their stations. We're receiving power from the quantum core. Weapon systems are charged and ready. They traveled through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were dark but not completely black. They had a strange quality, like looking into deep water at night. Emergency lights provided just enough illumination to see. The artificial gravity feels different, noticed. That's because we're not using rotating sections like normal ships, Lisa explained. The Leviathan creates its own gravity field, another gift from our alien technology. They passed groups of crew members working at their stations. Everyone looked focused and serious. They all knew what they were about to do. They were going to fight an enemy that had never been defeated. Finally, they reached the bridge, stopped in the doorway and stared. The command center was unlike anything he had ever seen. Instead of the usual screens and control panels, the bridge seemed to be made of pure shadow. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing information about the ship and surrounding space. "Welcome to your new command," said Chief Engineer, a large man with graying hair. "She's a beauty, isn't she?" Walked to the captain's chair in the center of the bridge. It was not a normal chair either. It seemed to be grown from the same dark material as the walls. When he sat down, he felt connections forming with his nervous system. Suddenly, he could sense the entire ship around him. "That's the neural interface," Doctor said, following them onto the bridge. "You're now connected directly to the Leviathan systems. You can feel what the ship feels." It was strange and wonderful at the same time. Could sense the power flowing through the ship systems. He could feel the quantum core humming deep below. He could even sense the space around the ship, as if the Leviathan was extending his senses into the universe. "Weapon status?" he asked. "Void Lance is charged and ready," reported Weapons Officer Khan. "Gravity generators are online. Temporal distortion systems are functioning normally." Had studied these weapons during his training, but he still did not fully understand how they worked. The Void Lance could fire a beam that simply erased matter from existence. The gravity generators could crush enemy ships or push them away. The temporal systems could slow down time around enemy vessels. "What about the shadow field?" asked. "Ready to deploy on your command," said Doctor. "But remember, once we activate it, every sensor in the galaxy will know something strange is happening." The shadow field was the Leviathan's most powerful ability. It could create a bubble of space where normal physics did not apply. Inside the field, the ship could move without being detected. It could fire weapons that enemy ships could not block. It could become truly invisible. "Captain," said Communications Officer Reed, "we're receiving final orders from Earth Command." Listen to the message from Admiral. The enemy fleet had been spotted moving toward Earth. 3,000 ships, just as intelligence had predicted. They would reach Earth's solar system in 4 days. "Set course for the outer solar system," ordered. "We'll intercept them before they get close to Earth." "Course laid in," reported Navigator Williams. "Engineering, prepare to engage the quantum drive." "Quantum drive ready," Kame's voice. Took a deep breath. Once they started moving, there would be no turning back. The Leviathan would reveal itself to the enemy. The galaxy would see what humans could really do. "All stations, this is the captain," he said over the ship's communication system. "We are beginning our mission. Everyone knows what we're facing. 3,000 enemy ships against our one, but we are not just any ship. We are the Leviathan. We are humanity's answer to those who would destroy us." He paused, feeling the weight of command settling on his shoulders. "The enemy thinks humans are weak. They think we are easy prey. Today we show them how wrong they are. Today we show them that humanity is done running. Engage quantum drive." The Leviathan began to move, but it did not move like a normal ship. Space itself seemed to bend around it. Stars stretched into lines of light. The massive vessel accelerated to speeds that should have been impossible. Behind them, Earth grew smaller. Ahead of them, somewhere in the darkness of space, the enemy was waiting. The shadow had awakened, and it was coming for those who threatened humanity's home. Warlord stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bone Crusher. His 6 arms moved across different control panels while his 4 eyes watched the screens around him. They were one of the most feared races in the hegemony and was their best military commander. "Report," he growled in his deep voice. "We are approaching the edge of the human solar system," said his sensor officer. "No sign of their defense fleet yet." Was not surprised. The humans were cowards. They always ran when faced with superior force. Soon, their home world would fall just like all their colonies. His fleet was impressive. 50 of the hegemony's finest ships, all armed with the latest weapons. Plasma cannons, quantum missiles, energy shields that could stop almost any attack. Behind them came the main Grand Armada, 3,000 ships that would finish what his advance force started. "Sir," called the sensor officer, "I'm detecting something strange." "What kind of strange?" demanded. There's a gravitational distortion moving toward us. It's big, very big. Moved to the sensor station with quick steps. His clawed feet clicked on the metal floor. He looked at the readings, but they made no sense. This says the object is 50 kilometers long, he said. That's impossible. No one builds ships that large. The readings are confirmed, sir, the officer said nervously. Whatever it is, it's heading straight for us. Put it on the main screen. The front wall of the bridge lit up with an image of space ahead. At first saw nothing unusual, just stars and empty darkness. Then his eyes began to adjust. There was something wrong with a section of space in the distance. The stars seemed bent, twisted out of their normal positions. Enhance that area, he ordered. The screen zoomed in. What saw made him step backward. There was a shape in space, but it was not reflecting light like normal ships. Instead, it seemed to be eating the light around it. The stars behind it were visible but distorted, as if he was looking through deep water. What are our sensors telling us about that thing? He asked. Sir, our sensors can't get a clear reading. It's like the object is not completely there. The gravity sensors detect massive weight, but the optical sensors see almost nothing. Felt a chill run through his body. In 30 years of fighting, he had never seen anything like this. Send a message to the main fleet, he ordered. Tell them we have encountered an unknown vessel of unusual design. Message sent, sir. The dark shape was getting closer now. Could see more details, though his eyes still had trouble focusing on it. It was definitely a ship, a massive triangular vessel that seemed to bend light around its hull. Strange energy patterns danced across its surface. Sir, should we attack? Asked his weapons officer. Thought for a moment. His instincts told him to be careful, but his pride would not let him back down. This was probably some kind of human trick, a fake ship designed to scare them. All ships prepare to fire, he ordered. Let's show these humans what real weapons can do. His 50 ships moved into attack formation, energy weapons powered up, missile tubes loaded. The Bone Crusher's main plasma cannon began to glow with deadly power. Fire shouted. Beams of energy and swarms of missiles flew toward the dark ship. Watched the screen, waiting to see the explosion that would prove this human trick was worthless. The weapons struck the dark hull, and then something impossible happened. They disappeared. Not destroyed, not deflected, simply gone as if they had never existed at all. What happened to our weapons? Demanded. Sir, I don't understand the readings, the weapons officer said, his voice shaking. The weapons hit the target, but then they just stopped existing. Before could respond, the dark ship began to change. A section of its hull started to glow with a light that hurt to look at. Not bright light, but something else. Something that made his eyes water and his mind feel confused. Incoming energy beam, shouted the sensor officer. The beam from the dark ship was unlike anything had ever seen. It was not a laser or plasma bolt. It was a line of absolute nothing that cut through space toward his fleet. The beam struck the cruiser Sharp Blade, one of his escort ships. Watched in horror as the 1,000-meter-long vessel simply ceased to exist, not exploded, not destroyed. It was there one moment, and the next moment there was only empty space. Where did the Sharp Blade go? He whispered. Sir, the sensor officer said in a voice full of fear. According to our instruments, the Sharp Blade was never there. Our sensors show empty space where the ship was. Felt his blood turn cold. Whatever weapon the humans had used, it did not just destroy ships. It erased them completely, as if they had never been built. All ships evasive action, he ordered. Get away from that thing. His fleet began to scatter, but the dark ship was faster than it looked. It moved through space in ways that physics, seeming to bend the universe around it as it traveled. Another beam of nothingness lanced out. This time it struck the destroyer Quick Death. The ship vanished just like the first one. No explosion, no debris, just empty space where a warship had been moments before. Sir, we need to retreat, said his second-in-command. We cannot fight this. Wanted to argue, but fear was stronger than pride. 2 of his ships were gone without a trace. His remaining vessels were firing everything they had at the dark ship, but their weapons kept disappearing when they got close to the hull. Signal the retreat, he ordered. All ships fall back to the main fleet. As his ships turned to flee, saw something that made his worst nightmares seem pleasant. The space around the dark ship was beginning to change. Reality itself seemed to be bending and twisting. Stars disappeared and reappeared in different locations. The darkness around the human ship was spreading outward like a living thing. "Maximum speed," he shouted. "Get us out of here." The Bone Crusher and the surviving ships of his fleet raced away from the human vessel as fast as their engines could carry them. Behind them, the dark ship followed at a steady pace, not hurrying, as if it knew his ships could not escape. Sent an urgent message to the main fleet. He tried to explain what he had seen, but the words seemed insufficient. How could he describe a ship that ate light? How could he explain weapons that made matter stop existing? As they fled, his sensor officer made regular reports. "The object is maintaining distance," the officer said. "It's not trying to catch us, it's just following." "What do you mean, following?" "Sir, it's like the ship is studying us, learning how we move, how fast we can go." Realized with growing horror that the human ship was not trying to destroy his fleet. It was letting them escape on purpose. It wanted them to reach the main armada. It wanted them to spread word of what they had seen. The dark ship was sending a message to the entire hegemony force. "We are here. We are ready. We are not what you expected." As they approached, the main fleet tried to prepare his report for Supreme Admiral Hun. How could he explain that they had encountered something that challenged everything they knew about warfare? How could he make the other commanders understand that the humans had built a weapon that seemed to break the laws of physics? The dark ship had stopped following them, but knew it was still there, waiting in the shadows between the stars, preparing for the battle that would decide the fate of Earth. For the first time in his military career, Warlord was afraid. Not just afraid of dying, but afraid of something much worse, afraid of an enemy that could make him stop existing entirely. The humans had revealed their secret. Now the real war would begin. Supreme Admiral Hun listened to Warlord's report with growing anger. His tall, thin body trembled with rage as he heard about the retreat of the advance force. "You are telling me that one human ship destroyed 2 of your vessels and made the rest run away?" Hun's voice was like ice. His species, were known for their cold logic and ruthless efficiency. "Supreme Admiral, with respect, it was not like any ship we have ever encountered," said. Even through the communication screen, Hun could see the fear in the commander's eyes. "Impossible," Hun declared. "Humans are primitive. Their technology is centuries behind ours. You and your crew suffered from battle stress. That is the only explanation." His 4 eyes flashed with anger, but he controlled himself. "Sir, I know what I saw. This ship uses weapons that make matter disappear. It moves through space in ways that should be impossible." Hun turned away from the screen. Around him, the bridge of his flagship Eternal Victory was busy with activity. 3,000 ships of the Grand Armada were moving into position. The largest military force in galactic history was preparing to end the human threat forever. He said finally, "Your advance force will join the rear guard. The main fleet will handle this mysterious human vessel." "Sir, I strongly recommend caution." "Enough," Hun cut off the communication. He looked at the tactical display showing his massive fleet. Battleships the size of cities, carriers holding thousands of fighter craft, destroyers armed with planet-killing weapons. No force in the galaxy could stand against such power. "Navigation, set course for Earth," he ordered. "Communications, send a message to all ship commanders. We will destroy the human home world in 6 hours." The Grand Armada moved forward like a steel wall crossing space. Hun felt satisfaction as he watched the formation. Soon, the humans would learn the price of resisting the hegemony. "Sir," called his sensor officer, "long-range scanners are detecting the object that reported." "Put it on screen." The main display showed a section of space ahead of the fleet. Hun stared hard, but saw only stars and darkness. "I see nothing unusual," he said. "Sir, look at grid section 77 Alpha. Notice how the stars seem slightly wrong in that area." Hun focused on that section. Gradually, his eyes began to see what the sensor officer meant. There was something wrong with the way starlight bent in that region. It was subtle, easy to miss, but definitely there. "Enhance that area," he ordered. The screen zoomed in. Slowly, Hun began to make out a shape. It was massive, much larger than any ship should be, and it seemed to be made of shadow itself. "Interesting," he said calmly. "So the humans do have some kind of stealth technology, primitive but clever." His tactical officer spoke up. "Sir, the object appears to be alone. No escort ships detected." Hun smiled. The humans had sent one ship, no matter how large, against his 3,000 vessels. It was either suicide or stupidity, probably both. "All ships surround the enemy vessel," he commanded. "I want it trapped in the center of our formation, no escape routes." The Grand Armada began to spread out. Ships moved to positions above, below, and on all sides of the dark shape. Within an hour, the human ship was completely surrounded by the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. "Perfect," Hun said. "Now we will see how brave these humans really are." As if responding to his words, the dark ship began to change. The shadow around it started to grow larger. The bending of starlight became more pronounced. "What is it doing?" asked the tactical officer. Before anyone could answer, the darkness began to expand rapidly. It spread outward from the human ship like spilled ink in water. Stars disappeared as the shadow covered them. Space itself seemed to be turning black. "Sir, our forward ships are reporting sensor failures," the communications officer said urgently. "They say the darkness is interfering with all their instruments." Hun felt his first moment of doubt. "What kind of sensor failures?" "Complete blackout, sir. Ships entering the dark area are losing all contact with the outside universe." The shadow kept expanding. Soon it had grown large enough to swallow entire sections of Hun's fleet. Hundreds of his ships were now inside the dark area, cut off from all communication. "This is some kind of jamming technology," Hun said, trying to convince himself. "Order all ships to fire into the dark area, saturate it with everything we have." Energy beams and missiles flew into the darkness from all directions. The weapon's fire was so intense it should have destroyed anything inside the shadow. But there were no explosions, no flashes of light. The darkness swallowed every shot without effect. "Sir," the sensor officer said, his voice shaking, "I'm detecting massive energy readings from inside the dark area. Something is building up power." Suddenly, beams of light began firing out of the darkness. But these were not normal energy weapons. They were the same terrible beams that had erased ships' lines of pure nothingness that made matter stop existing. Hun watched in horror as his great battleships began to disappear. The mighty Dreadnought Iron Fist simply ceased to be. The carrier's supreme power vanished without a trace. One by one, his most powerful vessels were being erased from reality. "All ships retreat to safe distance," he ordered. But retreating was not easy. The darkness was still growing, and it was moving. The shadow followed his ships as they tried to escape, always keeping some of them trapped inside its borders. Inside the dark area, Hun could sometimes see flashes of movement. Shapes that might have been smaller human ships, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. They would emerge from the shadow, fire their impossible weapons, then vanish again before his ships could respond. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked. The tactical officer checked his displays. "Over 400 confirmed destroyed, sir. Another 600 are trapped inside the dark area with no communication." 1/3 of his fleet was gone or missing. Hun felt cold fear creeping up his spine. This was not how battles were supposed to work. Enemies were supposed to fight with weapons you could understand and defend against. "Sir, the dark area is changing again," reported the sensor officer. Hun looked at the screen. The shadow was beginning to pulse like a living heart. Each pulse made it grow larger, and each growth swallowed more of his ships. Worse, the darkness was doing something to space itself. His remaining ships reported that their navigation systems were failing. Stars were appearing in the wrong places. Some of his vessels claimed they could see their own ships in impossible locations, as if space had been folded back on itself. "Supreme Admiral," came an urgent voice from communications. "We're receiving distress signals from inside the dark area. Our ships are reporting that physics is not working correctly. Their engines are losing power. Their weapons are failing." "That's impossible," Hun said. "Sir, one of our captains is claiming that time is moving differently inside the darkness. He says his chronometer shows that hours have passed, while only minutes have gone by outside." Hun realized with growing terror that the humans had not just built a powerful ship. They had built something that could change the rules of reality itself. Inside that growing shadow, the universe worked according to human will, not natural law. "All remaining ships full retreat," he ordered. "Get us away from that thing." His fleet began to flee, but the darkness was not finished with them. From its depths came a new horror. The space around his fleeing ships began to change as well. Gravity fields appeared from nowhere, crushing some vessels and flinging others off course. Time distortions trapped ships in bubbles where seconds lasted forever. The human ship emerged from the center of the darkness like a predator rising from deep water. Now Hun could see it clearly for the first time. It was indeed massive beyond belief, a triangular mountain of black metal that seemed to drink in all light around it. As he watched, the ship did something that challenged everything he knew about space warfare. It reached out toward his fleet's home star and seemed to grab it with invisible hands. The star began to flare, sending waves of deadly radiation toward his remaining ships. "They're controlling the star itself," whispered his science officer. "How is that possible?" Hun had no answer. The humans had revealed technology so advanced it might as well have been magic. His grand armada, the most powerful force in galactic history, was being destroyed by abilities that should not exist. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked his tactical officer. Hun looked at his displays. Of his 3,000 ships, fewer than 800 remained combat-ready. The rest were destroyed, missing, or trapped in space where normal physics no longer applied. "Signal general retreat," he said quietly. "All ships return to hegemony space, maximum speed." As his broken fleet fled, Hun sent one last look at the human ship. It was not following them. It simply waited in its sphere of darkness, like a patient hunter that had made its point. The message was clear: do not threaten Earth. Do not threaten humanity. The darkness between the stars was watching, and it would not tolerate aggression against the human home world. For the first time in his long career, Supreme Admiral Hun understood what it meant to be truly afraid. Captain stood on the bridge of the Leviathan, watching the debris field that had once been the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Pieces of broken alien ships drifted through space like funeral flowers scattered on a dark river. The shadow field was slowly shrinking back toward the ship. As normal space returned, the surviving crew members could see the full extent of their victory. Where 3,000 enemy vessels had once threatened Earth, now fewer than 200 ships remained, and those were fleeing as fast as their engines could carry them. "Damage report," said calmly. "All systems functioning normally," replied Chief Engineer. "The quantum core is stable, no damage to hull or weapon systems." Nodded, the Leviathan had fought the largest space battle in galactic history and emerged without a scratch. The enemy had thrown everything they had at humanity's secret weapon, and it had not been enough. "Communications, any word from Earth?" he asked. "Admiral sends her congratulations, sir," said Officer Reed. "She's asking when we'll return to port." Looked out at the stars surrounding them. Earth was safe now, but returning home would not be simple. The Leviathan had revealed its existence to the galaxy. Every alien species would soon know that humans possessed technology beyond their understanding. "Sir," said Doctor, "I'm receiving reports from our long-range sensors. News of the battle is already spreading. Quantum communication networks across the galaxy are carrying the story." Sat in his command chair and felt the ship's neural interface connect with his mind. Through the Leviathan's sensors, he could detect the electromagnetic signals racing between star systems. The news was traveling at the speed of light, but it was spreading in all directions. "What are they saying about us?" he asked. Doctor listened to the intercepted communications for several minutes. Her face grew pale as she heard the reports. "Sir, they're calling us the ship that devours light, the vessel that can make matter stop existing. Some of the reports claim we control black holes and can bend time itself." "All of that is technically true," said Commander Park. "That's the problem," Doctor replied. "We wanted to defend Earth, but now we've made humanity look like gods of war. Every alien species is going to be terrified of us." Understood the concern. The Leviathan had been built to protect humanity, not to make enemies fear them. But sometimes protection and fear were the same thing. "Captain," called the communications officer, "I'm receiving a transmission from the fleeing hegemony fleet. Supreme Admiral Hun wants to speak with you directly." Considered this. Talking to the enemy after a battle was unusual, but these were unusual circumstances. "Put him through." The main screen lit up with the image of the Admiral. Hun looked like he had aged years in the past few hours. His once proud posture was bent with defeat and fear. "Human Captain," Hun said, "I request permission to speak." "You have it," replied. "What you have done here changes everything. The hegemony has ruled this region of space for 200 years. We have never been defeated, never been afraid. Today you have shown us that we are not the strongest force in the galaxy." Said nothing. He wanted to hear what the defeated admiral had to say. "I must ask," Hun continued, "will humanity now conquer the galaxy as we tried to do? Will you use your terrible ship to destroy all who oppose you?" The question hung in the space between them. Every member of the Leviathan's crew was listening. The answer would help define humanity's future relationship with the galaxy. "Admiral," said carefully, "humanity did not build the Leviathan to conquer anyone. We built it to defend our home. As long as no one threatens Earth or human colonies, the Leviathan will remain in the shadows." Hun's expression showed both relief and confusion. "You could rule the galaxy. Why would you choose not to?" "Because," said, "we are not you." The transmission ended. Hun had his answer, and now the galaxy would learn what kind of species humanity really was. Over the following days, as the Leviathan made its way back toward Earth, reports continued to arrive from across known space. The Battle of Sol, as historians were already calling it, had sent shock waves through every major civilization. The hegemony was falling apart. 3 of their 12 member species had already withdrawn from the alliance. The remaining 9 were fighting among themselves about who was responsible for the disaster. Within a month, the once mighty confederation would be nothing more than a memory. But the effects went far beyond the hegemony. Other alien powers were scrambling to understand what humanity had become. Some tried to open diplomatic relations, hoping to stay on the good side of the species that commanded the ship of darkness. Others began building defenses against an attack they were sure would come. Trade routes changed overnight. No alien merchant ship would travel through human space without explicit permission. Pirates who had once preyed on human colonies suddenly found other targets. The very mention of the Leviathan was enough to clear entire sectors of hostile activity. "Sir," said Doctor one morning, "I've been monitoring galactic communication networks. There's something you should see." She brought up a holographic display showing news reports from dozens of alien worlds. The reports were all about humanity, and they were all filled with fear and wonder. "They're calling us the Dark Guardians," she said. "Species that have never heard of humans before are learning about us. They're teaching their children about the ship that can make reality itself bend to its will." Read through some of the reports. They described humanity as mysterious beings who hid among the stars, watching and waiting. Some claimed that humans had always possessed this technology, but had kept it secret. Others suggested that humanity had made contact with forces beyond normal understanding. "We've become legends," said Commander Park. "Stories that parents tell their children to make them behave." "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" asked. "I don't know," Park admitted, "but it means no one will threaten Earth for a very long time." As they approached the belt where the Leviathan would return to its hidden base, received new orders from Earth Command. The ship was to remain on standby, ready to deploy if humanity was threatened again. But it would stay hidden, a secret weapon that the galaxy now knew existed but could not find. "Captain," said the navigation officer, "we're approaching the construction facility." Through the viewports, could see the massive station where the Leviathan had been built. Already, work was beginning on new ships. Smaller vessels based on the same alien technology, but still far more advanced than anything humanity had possessed before. The galaxy had seen humanity's ultimate weapon. Now they would see humanity's restraint. The Leviathan would return to the shadows, watching over Earth and its colonies, but it would not attack unless attacked first. Stood and addressed his crew over the ship's communication system. "Ladies, and we have completed our mission. Earth is safe. The enemies who threatened our home have been defeated, but our work is not over. We are now the guardians of humanity's future. We are the watchers in the dark. We are the defenders that no one will see until they make the mistake of threatening what we protect." He paused, looking out at the stars. "The galaxy knows we exist now. They know that humanity is not as weak as they thought. Some will fear us, some will respect us, some will try to find ways to defeat us. Our job is to make sure they never have the chance." As the Leviathan docked with the hidden station, Alien sensors across the galaxy lost track of the massive ship. It seemed to simply vanish, disappearing into the darkness between the stars. But everyone knew it was still there. Somewhere in the void, humanity's greatest weapon waited and watched. It had become more than just a ship. It was a promise and a threat. A promise to defend the innocent and a threat to destroy anyone who would harm humanity's children. The age of humanity being prey was over. The age of humanity being the apex predator had begun. In council chambers and military headquarters across the galaxy, new protocols were established. Rule number 1 was simple: do not threaten Earth. Do not attack human colonies. Do not mistake humanity's restraint for weakness. Because somewhere in the darkness, the Leviathan was watching. And it remembered everything.